Hi everybody, this is Austin with Austin's Nerdy Things, and today we will be installing macOS 12 Monterey on Proxmox 7 as a virtual machine. So this video will be built on Nick Sherlock's blog post. He has a number of these for the various Proxmox and macOS versions. I've had great success with these in the past, so this is what we'll be following along with today. So we will be using an adaptation for Proxmox from the OS X KVM project. Thank you to Kiola and Leozen. So these guys, along with Nick, have kind of paved the way for this. Alright, so requirements: you need to have Proxmox 7 installed. You also need a real Mac to get the OSK key, which is kind of like a license key to enable the Mac to boot on non-Mac hardware. The Proxmox host CPU must support SSE 4.2, which came with Nehalem, which came out 13 years ago. So if your computer's newer than 13 years old, then it will work fine. Alright, so I have not said this yet, but we will be running this guide on a Windows PC using WSL, which is the Windows subsystem for Linux, to run these scripts. So first of all, we're going to download Nick's copy of the OS X KVM repository. So let me just switch over to, so this is a PowerShell script, so I'm just going to do WSL for Windows subsystem for Linux, and it just drops me in my user folder on the C drive. So we're going to change, you can do this wherever. I'm going to change to the H drive, which is where I do scratch things like this. So we need to clone this Git repository. We'll do git clone and then paste this in. Paste it only once. My mouse has been acting up. Alright, so git cloning, this is just downloading the files from that repository essentially. So Nick has two sets of instructions, essentially, one for Mac OS, one for Linux. We will be running this under the Linux subsystem, the Windows subsystem for Linux, so we're going to follow the Linux instructions. So once this gets done downloading, we will be installing these two packages, QEMU utils. QEMU is the virtualization technology that Proxmox uses, and Make is a system to build various things and packages and those types of things. So once this is done, okay, that took a lot longer than last time I did this. And I should back up. I'm making this video again because I did already install this Monterey virtual machine with the recommended disk size of 64 gigabytes. However, that was not enough free space to install XCode. So I'm doing it again, and I'm going to give it a much larger hard drive. Alright, so we just want to copy this and paste it once. I already did this, so nothing will be installed, but this is to get your QEMU utils and Make installed. We're going to skip this. Actually, no, we're not. What we're going to do is go to our new folder. When you clone something, it creates the folder. So we're going to change directory to OS X KVM, and then we're going to further change directory to scripts/Monterey, as indicated here. And now we are going to make the Monterey recovery image. And so this also downloads quite a bit. Let's see, this will be 608 megabytes. So we'll check back in a couple seconds. Okay, so that is done as well. What that just did is it downloaded the Monterey recovery installer from Apple and built the .img file. This img is what Proxmox will understand. Proxmox does not understand the .dmg, which is what Apple stuff speaks. So we will be uploading this to Proxmox ISO store. An easy way to do that is just click on local, and then ISO images, and then upload. We just made this recovery image, and it lives in scripts/Monterey. So we're going to double click that and upload it. We're going to skip this because we just did that. This is for the Mac OS portion. Next up is to download the OpenCore image. OpenCore is a bootloader, I believe is the best term for it. It's basically how to get your system ready to boot the Mac OS. So I already have this downloaded. Alright, this is showing that we've successfully uploaded the Monterey recovery image. And here is the OpenCore. I downloaded the .iso.gz, which just had it zipped up. So now I'm going to extract this to the H drive where we are working. Alright, so OpenCore to H drive. And then we are going to upload that as well. So that's going to be in this folder, OpenCore, upload. Alright, so now we have the two images we need in our Proxmox ISO images, the Monterey recovery image that we built in the OpenCore v16 that we downloaded. That comes from this link. Basically just come here, download the iso.gz, unzip it, and stick it somewhere, and then upload it to Proxmox. Alright, so next is to get the OSK authentication key. This, like I said, is basically the key that Mac uses to determine if it is running on real hardware or not. So run this script on your Mac and it will spit out a 64-character OSK for you, which we will be using when we edit the configuration file for this virtual machine. Okay, so to create the virtual machine itself, we're going to go to create virtual machine. We're going to name it something original like macOS Monterey. Next, and we are going to use the OpenCore image as the main boot. We're going to set the OS to other. The system type is going to be VMware compatible. SCSI controller is good. The machine type is Q35. The firmware is UEFI. The UEFI storage, we're going to do ZFS because that's where we're going to stick it. You got to uncheck this, pre-enroll keys. We are not going to pre-enroll keys. And the rest should match up. So for disks then, we will be adding another disk. This is going to be the main hard drive for the Mac OS virtual machine. And I'm going to stick that on my ZFS also. And I'm going to make this like 120 gigabytes. If that's not big enough, then it said there were 44 gigabytes free. The XCode download is like 11 or 12, so I don't know what Apple's doing with their file systems, but the fact there's 44 gigabytes free and it can't install an 11 gigabyte program is just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Alright, we're going to do write back cache because I know my underlying storage is fine. If you don't have ZFS or otherwise, just leave it at the default of no cache. And then discard as well. So I think we're good here. Alright, so for cores, the number of cores per socket has to be a power of 2. So a power of 2 is 1 core, 2 core, 4, 8, 16, 32, so on and so forth. So if you want something like 6 cores in your virtual machine, you have to do 3 sockets of 2 cores. That's how you get 6. That's how you get, other numbers that are not powers of 4 that generally work in other systems. We're just going to leave this. We're going to do 4 cores of 1 socket. Keep it basic. Memory. Nick shows we're doing this with 4 gigabytes of memory. My VM host has quite a bit more available, so I'm going to do 16 gigs. Then for network, you just got to change this to vert.io, and then we should be good. So it looks a little bit different. I don't know exactly what changed because I'm running Proxmox 7 and so is he, but it's a little out of order. Got some different options here. Alright, so gonna click finish. We are not going to start it. Alright, in the options page for the VM, we have VM 100 is macOS Monterey. So in the options page, use tablet for pointer set to yes. And now in the hardware page, we're going to add a second DVD drive at IDE 0 and set it to use the Monterey installer image. So we don't have the full, we only have recovery. We're going to use that. Alright, so don't start the VM yet. So now we need to SSH into the Proxmox server, and we need to change the configuration file a little bit. You really don't have to. I don't know how many people know about this, but if you just click the host in the data center dropdown, you can click shell, and you're dropped right into a root shell on your Proxmox machine, so you can skip the SSH step. Alright, so now we've got this line that we need to add. So let me fire up a notepad. Alright, so here's Notepad. So we're going to add this line, and we're going to add some other arguments to it. Alright, so we'll paste this. This is a single line. It looks like it's multiple, but it is actually a single line. And note here, this is the OSK stuff. So this is where you would put, this is where you put the 64 character OSK from your Mac. And I'm not going to be typing it out here. I will not show it in this video. You need to get it from your Mac and place it in here. Okay, so we've got the first half of this argument done. And then we need to add more to it. If your host CPU is Intel, add this to the end. If your host CPU is AMD, add this stuff to the end. So we've got an Intel Xenon, what is it? E5-2678V3 in this one. So basically this is, when we selected the CPU type to be Penryn, we did not do that yet. I skipped over that. Alright, VM 100 hardware processor type needs to be Penryn. Okay. So we're telling the Mac VM that we have a Penryn CPU. That's officially what it's going to be running on. However, with all this other stuff, we are going to expose here specifically CPU-host plus all this other stuff is we're going to expose all of the other features that the CPU has to the Mac VM. Even though the Mac VM is going to think it's a Penryn CPU, which is like super old. It's like 12 years old at this point. So this will pass through all the features that your CPU supports. OpenCore's config will pretend to Mac OS that the CPU's model name is Penryn for compatibility. Okay, so now we're going to copy this single line, and then we're going to nano/etc pve/ whatever else it's set up here. I think it's QEMU server /100 is our virtual machine ID. We're just going to page down a couple times to get to the bottom, right click to paste. And so here we have our args line. It's really long, but this is all the stuff to basically fake the underlying hardware. You will need to change this, the OSK, to what your Mac has spit out. I will be pausing later to do that because we still have to edit two other things. Okay, so now find the lines that define the two ISOs. And so these would be these two, IDE 0 and IDE 2. And so we're going to be changing this media equals CD-ROM to say cache equals unsafe, which is effectively telling it that these are actually hard drives instead of CD-ROMs or DVDs or whatever. So this enables writes to these IDE devices. So your final VM configuration file should resemble this. And it does. We've got Monterey recovery on IDE 0. We've got OpenCore on IDE 2. We've got caches unsafe for both. We've got our Penryn CPU here. 4 cores. The rest looks good. So I'm going to hit Control O, enter to save, Control X to exit. And now we have to enable this. So basically we're going to set KVM ignore MSRS. I don't know what this does. I did at one point to the KVM kernel module, and then we're going to update our bootloaders to persist across reboots. All right, so this is going to run. It takes a couple minutes. I am going to also change out the OSK in the config file, and then we will get to installing Monterey. Okay, so we have updated the bootloaders and the kernels. These will always use this option now. and I have also changed the OSK, the license in the .conf file, so we should be good to go to install Monterey. So I'm going to close this out. I'm going to right click on our Mac VM, go to Start, switch over to Console. Alright, and so we did build a recovery installer, so the icon will be a hard disk and will be labeled macOS base system. Alright, so it's kind of annoying, but it resizes by default, so I'm just going to live with it like this. So here is the Open Core boot menu. You can use the arrow keys left and right to go left and right, but we want to do macOS base system. You cannot use your mouse on that screen. Okay, so next up we will fire up disk utility and erase the virt.io block media disk and name it main. Okay, so we've got the initial boot going. We're going to go to disk utility, continue. Alright, and here's our virt.io block media. Shows it 128 gigabytes, even though I said 120, that's the difference between gigabytes and gigabeats, something like that. I forget, GIB versus GB. Alright, we're going to name it main. We're going to erase it. Alright, it's done. Click done. We're going to exit disk utility by going up here, disk utility, and then quit disk utility. And now, it says reinstall, but really we're doing the initial install of macOS Monterey. Continue. Continue. Oh, little baby's waking up from her afternoon nap. Alright, so I'm going to see if I can get this going. It downloads the install media, the full OS from Apple, which takes a while. So it's throttled on the Apple side. It doesn't matter how fast your internet is. It takes a while for this to go. So let's get this going and see how long it actually takes to install. Alright, we've got some license stuff here. We're going to install to main. Alright, so 2 hours, 17 minutes remaining, that's the default value. This will drop down to like 50 minutes the first time it updates, and it'll take 20 or 30 minutes to actually download the install media. So we will be checking back in 20 or 30 minutes. I'm not going to say the hard part's over yet, but the hard part's basically over. We got the virtual machine created and configured. Now we're installing the Mac operating system, and from here should be pretty smooth sailing. Just have to wait and reboot a couple different times. So if you like this so far, go ahead and click like and subscribe to see more videos like this, and we will check back in with you guys hopefully sooner than an hour and 8 minutes. But don't be scared if my clock jumps a couple hours ahead. Dealing with or hanging out with the baby, not dealing with the baby. I get to hang out with her. I don't have to hang out with her. So, okay, we'll catch you guys when we catch you guys. Okay, we are back after a clock jump and a nice visit to the park on a 50-degree sunny day. So what has happened is the first stage of installation has completed, and the VM will need to reboot 2 or 3 more times in quick succession, and each time we must manually pick the macOS installer entry. So clicking over here to our virtual machine, again the mouse does not work. You can see this is the Mac one here, but the arrow keys on your keyboard do. So we're going to go to macOS installer, hit enter, and let it do its thing again. Basically anytime that pops up, you just need to hit it. So I think I had 3 reboots the first time I installed this. This is the second one now. I'm not sure why it says 2 or 3 times in quick succession. 29 minutes is not quick. If I recall correctly, I think it took like 10 or 15 minutes the first time I did this. So we will be back after another clock jump. Alright, another time jump and another reboot. Let's see. Here's my mouse, macOS installer. This should be the last time, I believe. Fingers crossed. Alright, I'm going to stop recording again, and we'll be back after the next time jump. Okay, so that was what appears to be the last time jump. I think we're done installing. So we do have a main over here on the right. So let me auto scale this and let's see, what is it? Local scaling, turn auto resize off. Yep, there we go. Okay, so let's boot up to main and see what happens. If your boot freezes about right here in the progress bar, it's because your OSK is wrong. Ask me how I know. So we skipped over that, got the right OSK in there, the license key. It's proceeding as expected for a normal macOS boot. The first boot does take a lot longer than any subsequent boots. In Nick's blog post, he talks about how it's performing housekeeping tasks. So, alright, looks like it rebooted itself one more time. Let's try main again, see what happens. Alright, and we have a working Mac OS Monterey install. So that is the majority of the content. This gets us to the install, through the install, sorry. There are a couple more housekeeping tasks, to borrow Nick's phrase, to make the OpenCore install permanent, because right now we do need OpenCore to boot every time. You hit the arrow over and go to main, and that gets you through the boot. Even if you hit reboot, you need to do that. So just a heads up, I'm not going to walk through these. I just wanted to get through the initial install. Well, let me back up. If there is any demand, if there's enough demand, I will go ahead and make a video for that. Sleep management, this sleep worked fine for me. I did not have any issues with waking Monterey up from sleep. Doing the config.plist stuff, I am really kind of in the deep end for that. I have not messed around with it too much, so I'm going to not go through any of this. Same with automatic boots, verbose boot. If you need this, you do command plus V. Command, I think, is control for Windows. Here's how to change the screen resolution. Nick talks about getting a video card installed, and so that does work, but the macOS screen sharing is how I primarily use it. So you go to settings and then sharing, and then you check screen sharing, and then I use VNC Viewer, and it works pretty well for performance. The other thing that Nick does is he basically runs the virtual machine as his daily driver, his main computer, so he passes through a bunch of stuff. Here's that odd core counts thing. Like if you want to have 6 cores, you have to have 3 sockets of 2 cores each, which says it right here. Fixing guest boots to UEFI shell, we did not have this problem. Alright, and I do need to stop here and warn you to do not try to use iMessage with this as installed. You will need to go through and set a number of services. You need to basically generate a couple different serial number type things, MLB, ROM, serial product names, serial number, system product names, system serial number, system UUID. You have to go through all these steps. I'll put this link in the description, but this is basically what you want to do if you need to connect it to things like iCloud, iMessage, FaceTime, those kinds of things. It's a pretty generic base install. And because it's not an actual Apple machine, you will have problems. Also, I want to warn you about upgrading. Since we're in Proxmox, it's a virtual machine. You have the ability to take snapshots and backups. Do that anytime you want to upgrade beforehand. And here's some instructions for how to upgrade from Big Sur. And then you will see this scroll bar is only about a third of the way down. The rest are comments. If you have anything going on, you of course can comment on my video, or you can comment on Nick's blog post that I will of course be linking to in the description as well. So, alright, well I think this video altogether was about 30 minutes for installing macOS 12 Monterey on Proxmox 7. I might try to turn this into a script. I think that would be very helpful and save a lot of time. So keep your eyes open for that. But anyways, we are now done here. I am going to finish setting up the initial stuff, and then I'm going to download XCode, and hopefully it installs on a 120 gigabyte disk. If it doesn't, I'm going to be very unhappy. So that's that. Go ahead and click like and subscribe if you liked this video, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like it. And we'll catch you next time. Alright, signing off for today, Austin with Austin's Nerdy Things. Have a good one.